Okay, no, that went really silent. Hi, everyone. My name is Zaid. I'm the Student Union President at Kent Union, and thank you so much for attending our VC Question Time 2023. This is the first one of the year, and the theme for today is community and engagement. I'd like to thank the lovely Vice Chancellor and the Director of Engagement for coming along, and I'll give them a moment to introduce themselves. Before we move on, I do want to do some housekeeping firstly. So from my knowledge, there are no planned fire alarms. If you do hear a fire alarm, please leave through your nearest fire exit, which are down here and up there as well. We will be going through some pre-submitted questions that have come through. I will be asking those first, and then I will open it up to audience questions as well. We have two lovely ladies, Linda and Linda, who will be going around with the roaming mics and will be passing it along. So they'll be giving you that opportunity to ask that question, and then we'll be answering those questions for you. I would like to urge everyone to stay kind of concise with their questions because we are limited on time today, and we want to make sure we get as many questions answered. If we aren't able to get your question answered here, we'll be taking that away, getting the answer for it, and then we'll be posting all of those answers on the website as well, both on the university website and the Students' Union website as well. So we'll take that back as well. If there's any questions after the event as well, please do ask them. We do also urge everyone to remain respectful in the way they ask their questions to ensure that we have an open and honest dialogue and maintain conversations here. It's a really important space for transparency and accountability of the university, and we want to maintain that, and we want to ensure that the questions as well as the answers are productive. So this is a really productive space, so I'm quite excited to open it up to you all. I want to give you guys the power as students to be able to hold the university to account as well as hold the Student Union to account, and that's part of our student priority of representation and transparency. So I'm really, really grateful that you all could make it, and everyone who's watching online as well. Thank you for joining us. And yeah, so now I'll pass it over to Karen to introduce herself.
Okay, thanks, Ed. So, hello everybody. I'm Karen Cox. I'm the Vice Chancellor here at the University of Kent. In terms of what that actually means, because it's kind of a strange title, isn't it? And I think sometimes titles in universities can be a little bit opaque in terms of what they actually mean. So Vice Chancellor, in effect, is I suppose you could describe as a kind of chief executive equivalent. And so I am the leader of the university. I have a team that I work with, and that team is made up of individuals who have particular areas of responsibility, and collectively we together work with colleagues, work with our students to make sure that we're enabling the mission of the university, so to make sure we're delivering great teaching, undertaking research, and engaging positively with our communities. I also report into a governing body, the University Council, and that is made up of external members of the university, but also elected members of staff and, importantly, of students. And there are a number of students on that governing body. It's incredibly important, I believe, that they are there, and Zaid is one of them. And through that mechanism, we are able to both challenge what we're doing as a university, but to hear voices from staff and from students direct. But I think one of the things that Kent Union has been doing really well over the last few years is engaging very positively with us as a university, of which we are all part, but really trying to make sure that students' voices are heard from right across the university. And that we can, through Kent Union, also communicate with our students and hear differences of opinion, have feedback, and I think productively that has meant that we've been able to make some really quite significant changes to the way that we're thinking about things, what we're trying to do, acknowledging we don't always get things right, but striving to listen and to engage and then to make some changes. So I really welcome these opportunities. We don't always have the answers, and I think one of the things we will make sure that we do is if we're not able to respond today or you'd like some follow-up, then very happy to facilitate that, and we'll be making sure that we work with Zaid and colleagues to get answers to the questions that you raise. Thank you, Zaid.
Thank you. I'll pass over to Philip.
Thank you, Zaid, and good afternoon, everyone. Very nice to be here. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about our work. My name is Philip Pothen. I'm the Director of Engagement here at the university. Various areas I'm responsible for, including communications, that's staff and student communications, but how we project ourselves to the outside world as well. I'm also responsible for our alumni team and fundraising and corporate events, which is principally graduations. But I'm also responsible for our work, what we call civic mission, which is how we engage with local and regional communities as well. So I lead our work around right to food, around sanctuary, Medway Civic Agreement, and various initiatives in Canterbury as well. So yeah, it's a great pleasure to be here and to tell you something of my team's work.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Philip. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we're just going to get straight into it because we are limited on time today, so we're going to get into our pre-submitted questions, and then once time finishes on there, we'll open it up to the audience questions as well with the roaming mics. So I'll start off with the first pre-submitted question that came in, and that was, PGR engagement is at its lowest currently owing to limited funds and focus being on undergraduate courses. What is being done to ensure PGR and PGT students also have a holistic student experience at university and not feel left out?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you did share with me that that was one of the pre-submitted questions. I think it's a challenge, isn't it, when actually it feels sometimes that you're only hearing about one element of student experience. And I think because there are large numbers of undergraduate students, that's where a lot of the focus is, and those students spending 3-4 years with us as well. However, absolutely acknowledge that our postgraduate taught and postgraduate research students are an incredibly important part of the university's community. I think that there's some really interesting opportunities that we've got over the next few years. I mean, we may come on to this, but we are looking at, as a university, who we are, what we're doing and how we're doing it. And interestingly, I think one of the things that we are really clear about is that we want to make sure that it doesn't matter what subject you're studying or at what level, that you should be able to be engaged at university, have opportunities to not just undertake study, but to also avail yourself of all of the opportunities that are there for all students. And I think sometimes it can feel that these are for undergraduate students, these are for postgrad. And actually, we want to try and make sure that we break down some of those barriers. So I think for me, there's something about working with Kent Union around supporting our postgraduate community in different ways. So how can we make sure that they are not just in small groups or isolated because they're with a supervisor, but are actually able to take part in activities and events that are not just badged as undergraduate or postgraduate, but are badged for all students. That we're clear about not just activities, but the resources and facilities that are available on campus. And actually, we also want to engage with students to find out what they want and what they're looking for, because, of course, they will be different. So I think I would strongly encourage our postgraduate colleagues to engage with Kent Union and the postgraduate representation that is there. I don't know if Ben's around, but
he's not. But yeah, Ben,
but we'll tag Ben for that one. But also, I think speaking with course leaders and supervisors is also a great way to start to flag. This is what I'm looking for. This is the kind of support and information. We can also work with Graduate Research College as well, that provides a lot of training and support, particularly for our postgraduate research students. So I would suggest that there are lots of things out there. We need to make them more visible, we need to make them more accessible, but we also need to hear from students in terms of what they're looking for.
100%, thank you. Anything to add to that?
I guess also there are lots of opportunities within the areas that I've mentioned, right to food and University of Sanctuary, for example. We have PGR representatives on those steering groups, so there are opportunities to get involved. And I think, I mean, just reflecting on my time as a doctoral student, there's the real opportunities for students themselves to organise and to support each other, and I think that's a really powerful way of doing this. But of course, we need to provide mechanisms and structures as well, and just reflecting on the Global Skills Award for PGT students and the Research and Development Programme that Karen mentioned for PGR students. So as you say, Karen, there's a lot going on, but obviously we could always do better.
Perfect. Thank you so much. My next pre-submitted question is around an experience of a black student. So a black student mentioned that their experience hasn't been the best here, and often they feel they have to go out of their way to meet other black students as they're the only black person in their accommodation. There is a long way to go for Kent in terms of tackling racism and inclusion. So what steps are the university taking to tackle this ongoing issue?
Yeah, so absolutely acknowledge the feedback. And I think, we do acknowledge that we have a long way to go in terms of addressing the feedback that our black student community do give us. But I did want to flag just one thing. And I brought it with me there because I thought it was so good. So and some of you may know about this, but the Black Student Voices project, the research that had been undertaken through that project was presented, it was last week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Fantastic event. And I did want to thank Manusha and Charlene Grace for presenting those findings. I think I just wanted to flag that I found this particularly helpful and important because I think for the first time we've got a piece of work that actually, both in quantitative and qualitative terms, is flagging some real issues for us and actually is playing those issues back to us with the words and experiences of those students. So I think that some of the recommendations that they've made, we are absolutely taking on board. So things around mandatory EDI training, things around really trying to look at our staff in particular and trying to reflect our student body back in terms of the staff makeup that we have here at Kent, and in particular, of course, not just our academic staff, but in support and particularly counselling and support staff as well, and also board and governing the governing body. People were asking for more cultural events and activities. I think we can easily work with yourselves on that. Lots of things raised around intersectionality during significant holidays and days that people want to observe. And again, I think there are things that we already do, but probably could do more of. I think importantly, making sure our complaint system is clear and open. But also, I think one of the important things, and I do think we have done some significant work around this, is actually decolonising or diversifying the curriculum. And I think that the diversity mark that colleagues working with students have devised around working with module leaders and programme leaders around how can they diversify their reading list, for example, is a really important way of both raising profile but also really actually taking actions and making a difference. So I did just want to acknowledge that in response to that question, because I think the work has been hugely helpful. We've now got to make sure we act on it, and we need to make sure that we're doing more in this space as well.
100%. Thank you. And just to give people an update on that, the Black Student Voices project has been a year-long project run by student researchers and Kent Union to understand the experience of black students here at Kent. They've researched and spoken to over 1,500 black students, which is an amazing, amazing feat, and we're trying to use the recommendations that came out of that research and implement those to ensure their experience here is the best it can be. We remove barriers, create an equitable and inclusive space here at Kent. So those recommendations will be taken to a working group specifically focused on the Black Student Voices research, which will be made up of key partners from the university and the Students' Union to take those recommendations on rather than it just kind of being put up on the shelf. We will be taking it very seriously over the next few years and implementing that with the university's EDI strategy and our EDI strategy as well. So yeah, thank you for that. Do you want to add anything?
Yes, could I?
Yeah.
I was just, I echo everything that Karen and Zaid have said. And the event last week was terrific, I thought, in just presenting the findings, and so obviously we'll be doing a lot to communicate that in January. But I just want to highlight the work of the Living Black Working Group, and I brought along the Living Black at Kent publication, which I think is really, really positive development, and just a sign of the kind of growing commitment and of the university as a whole, and it's wonderful. I think students were really involved in that with staff, working together on that initiative. So I think there's a lot more to come, but some great strides have been made already.
Thank you for that. So the next question is really, really important. So for most of you who may be aware of this, there is a current ongoing war in Israel and Gaza, and there has been a lot of sensitivities around it. A lot of our students have been directly impacted, especially our Palestinian and Israeli students, but also our wider community because of the situation. And we did release a joint statement, and I do want to acknowledge the hurt that some of the wording caused to our students, and really just apologize for that mistake, and we take that for ourselves. It wasn't the right wording to use, and we did make that change, but we shouldn't have been making that mistake in the first place, and that's our responsibility, and we fully take that up. And there's some really important questions submitted by students, so I do want to take some time for these 2 questions, and then open up to the audience later on as well for if any have any questions on that, and we will be very open to answering that. So the question is that, hello, as a pro-Palestinian student, can you explain to me how was the statement about the Palestinian issue neutral? As a reader, I can see the statement is one-sided and doesn't explain what's happening to the Palestinian people. I believe that as a very positive university, we should be more open about the Palestinian conflict and the terrorist attacks that are happening. We should educate people on campus about it and creating more events and mini protests that explain the devastating attacks that are occurring in Gaza every day. So the question itself was, how was the statement about the Palestinian issue neutral?
Yeah, I mean, I think Zaid, you've already acknowledged that the joint statement, whilst of course coming from a place of acknowledging, the hurt and the horror in terms of what's going on, was not necessarily using a kind of an approach and language that actually didn't land in the way that was intended. So I would also like to acknowledge that we've received feedback from staff and from students, and sat down and listened to those staff and students as well, in terms of the very different perspectives and the different experiences that people wanted us to hear, and that have been shared. I think that it's really important that first of all we acknowledge that our first responsibility is to our staff and students here at the university, to ensure that they feel that they can express themselves, but that also that they feel safe. And one of the things that I found most troubling was when people were raising with me that they didn't feel safe because they felt that there was a particular slant being presented in terms of various statements, not just from the university, but in terms of what's been going on more broadly in terms of national and international media. So I think for me, this is about how do we, as a community, acknowledge that this is an absolutely appalling situation. Terror and violence we condemn. We absolutely should be and are calling for peaceful solutions, and also the opportunity for humanitarian aid and intervention. But they're things that, yes, we can all say, but one of the things we have to demonstrate is through our actions. And I think the things that we are trying to do through making sure that we're listening to a range of voices, offering support, and I know we've had some feedback from students about the kind of support that they're looking for might not necessarily be the kind of support that we're providing, and we want to hear from students about what they are looking for, to provide platforms for people to be able to speak their lived experiences and their thoughts about the experience that they or their families are having. We want to absolutely support that. And also the right to peaceful protest as well. I hope we've facilitated that as a university. We're also conscious, though, that people can feel frightened in those situations. And we also want to make sure that people can feel able to report instances where they feel harassed or threatened. And there's as an organisation, we're trying to balance all of those things. But we are listening, we do want feedback, and if there are things that you and colleagues feel we should be doing differently, or you're looking for particular things in terms of support or advice, then we absolutely want to hear that, because we recognise we do not always have all the answers. We do not always get everything right. And I've been incredibly humbled by the feedback that we've had. So I want to thank people for sharing what they've shared, and to continue to do so, because we want to make sure that we are able to listen and then act in terms of what people are feeding back to us.
Thank you. And Philip, did you want to add anything to that?
I think Karen's covered everything. Thank you.
No worries. I think part of the second question was also like, what is the university and the union doing to support impacted students in this war? And I'd like to firstly highlight that I've been meeting with a lot of different students from different backgrounds and different student groups to understand how we can best work with them and support them. So we are trying everything we can to be able to support them in having peaceful protests, and organizing fundraising events, and organizing whatever they need to be able to support what they believe in, you know, and also ensuring that we're there giving the right signposting advice on if they have experienced any hate or any forms of violence here on campus, how they can report it and how seriously it will be taken. That's one thing that we as a union and university can agree on, is that every single student here at Kent deserves to feel safe, feel respected and feel heard, and that's what we're here to facilitate as well. So from the union's perspective as well, we will be challenging the university on this, and we're making sure that we're holding each other accountable, and we hope the students hold us accountable as you have done so in our actions, and ensuring that we're using our voice in the best way. Kent Union has also released a follow-up statement as well today that's come from the offices, but it is calling for a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza, which is really, really important, because the situation there is terrifying. It is horrible. And for our Palestinian students as well to see what's going on there, but also be impacted directly for losing family members, we need to be able to be there and support them and ensure that we are standing up for humanity, and that we are standing up on the right side, and making sure that we are applying the political influence that, as little as it may be, as we are applying it in the best way we can. So calling for that humanitarian ceasefire is important. I would urge every single student to have a read of that statement, but specifically also email your MPs. You know, you can find your MP very easily online. Email them, because tomorrow there's an amendment to the King's Speech that is going to Parliament for vote, and that amendment is calling for a humanitarian ceasefire. So if you believe in that as well, please email your MP and apply your pressure. They are your representatives on a national level, and to represent your voices, they need to hear it. So use your voices collectively. And I'd just like to point that out. Thank you.
That's helpful.
Can I just add that the student support team is also doing a lot as well in terms of weekly drop-in sessions and appointments for one-to-ones, and also out-of-hours support as well. So information about that is available. So just to emphasize that that's also happened, because as Zaid said, you know, this impacts on people very directly, and people will be impacted in various ways. So there is support available.
100%. And if it's not the support that you may need different types of support, please let us know. We're open to listening and putting that in place for you. Yeah. Thank you. I'll move on to the next question as well. So what is the university, what steps are in place to improve teaching quality? A student said that they've barely received any taught classes this term, and have only had essays to submit, and feel like they could have done this without coming to university. So I think that is a really key specific issue that we need to take back separately. But overall, what is the university doing?
Yeah. So that is, whoever raised that, I think we need to follow up directly, and I would say to that individual then, please raise it with Kent Union, and raise it with your head of school, because that is not a situation that we want to be being fed back to us in terms of what students are experiencing. So I think it's an interesting question, isn't it? I mean, we all have, having been to university, and you are here at university, have different reasons for coming to university, have different reasons for choosing the course, have different ways then of engaging with coursework, with study, with activities that support the wider university experience. And I think that you should be able to do two things. One is to bring your whole self to that environment and to that course, and then also to expect the people you're engaging with, whether that's your peers in the classroom or laboratory or wherever, that your lecturers, supporters, supervisors and professional services staff also do the same. So I think it's really important for me as leader of the institution to flag that we have really high expectations of our students, but also of all of our staff. I think it's also fair to say that there's always things that we can do better. So I think there's a really important part of being at university which is about providing feedback. That could be, again, as you're going through your programme and you're feeding back on the module you've just taken. It could be the NSS survey that you complete at the end of your 3 years of study, or it could be the postgraduate survey that you complete when you get to the end of your postgraduate programme. We need to hear that feedback because it's the only way that we can get better. All of that, though, is telling us that actually our students are changing. They're wanting different things from university. They're wanting to engage differently with their studies, whether that's thinking about engaging with content differently, using digital technologies to access curriculum in different ways, to combine work experience with study. All this is actually, and taking courses for very different reasons. It's actually quite profound, I think, in terms of the way that people are now making choices about university and what they want from university. So I think all of this is really challenging the whole sector, but I'll bring that back to the University of Kent, to actually think about how do we do things in the future? How do we think about the way that we offer our courses? How do we ensure that we get good engagement with our students, and that actually we're preparing students for whatever careers or world of work that they want to enter into. So I suppose it's a roundabout way of saying we take that feedback seriously. We want to make sure that we're responding to what students of now and the future are looking for from higher education, and we're starting here at Kent to put that into a strategy and a plan that we're calling Kent 2030. And it is about reimagining the university, reimagining the courses we offer, how we offer them, how we deliver those courses, and how students can actually be fundamentally a part of and co-creating those courses and those experiences. So this for me is very important. It's about putting students at the heart of what we do. It's about hearing them, what they're looking for, and incorporating that into what we deliver. It's about making sure that we're enabled to, within the resources that we have, deliver a really fantastic student experience. But you all know as well as I do that it's a really challenging environment out there at the moment in terms of higher education, the financial situation, what's happening in terms of home and international recruitment. And that's why we need feedback. It's because the world is changing. We have different resources and different things to think about now in terms of what we offer and how we offer it. And we want to make sure that the University of Kent is delivering really well within that very different environment. And I think there are some things that we can do exceptionally well because of where we are and our connectivity across the country and into Europe and then across the world, the kind of resources and facilities that we have, and also the reputation that we have. But we need to engage with students and staff in order to make that better. So again, we take that seriously, get feedback seriously, and we do want to address it. But I think there's a wider picture here as well.
100%. Thank you. Yeah. We'll follow that up directly
great.
as well. My next question, I'm just going to keep going through it, is what is the university doing to welcome refugees with the University of Sanctuary project, especially because of our location being in Kent and so close to the border? We see a lot of hateful rhetoric sometimes on refugees and migrants. So what is the university doing to support that? Direct that to you.
Great, thank you, Zaid. No, really great question. We're doing a lot, and at the heart of that is our application to become a University of Sanctuary. And I lead and have led for over the last 18 months the University of Sanctuary Steering Group, which includes students as well. And so we've been preparing our application, and we have now submitted the application. And that highlights a number of things. One of them is our article, what we call Article 26 scholarships, which is kind of a slightly bureaucratic name, and we've renamed that now actually Sanctuary Scholarships. We provide 5 scholarships every year, so all fees are paid for those scholars. We currently have 11 Sanctuary Scholars within the university. And we're really proud of that because we've got a really good track record at Kent of supporting Sanctuary Scholars. And we've also started to fundraise for those scholars. So not only will they have fees paid for them, but they'll also have maintenance up to, we hope, the real living wage, because they have real, depending on the precise status, real issues around working and so on. So we have got our first donation from a local foundation to support our Sanctuary Scholars, which is brilliant, and I hope it's going to be the first of many such donations to support them. So Sanctuary Scholarships are really important, and as I say, we have a number of scholars already here. But one of the things that's been really pleasing over the last 18 months is the way that the STAR group has really been galvanised here at the university. STAR stands for Student Action on Refugees. It's a national organisation, but universities have their own STAR groups. And working with Zaid and Tony and others, we've been able to rejuvenate the STAR group, and it's doing some fantastic work. It's got some great leadership there, and it's wonderful to see students really becoming activists in this space and arguing for change. So that's another area that we've been working on. Our Refugee Week activities are really have grown. In June, we had a number of activities there, including welcoming around 30 residents of the Napier Barracks in Folkestone who came onto campus to hear about admissions to higher education, admissions to Kent. And they also shared a lunch outside on the registry lawn, and did a number of activities with them, bringing staff, students, and those Napier Barracks residents together, and that was fantastic. We also have a lot of work around research. You know, we've got a real research strength in migration and so on. So all of these things have gone into our application to become a University of Sanctuary, which will really highlight that we at Kent believe in a welcoming and inclusive approach to refugees and asylum seekers, whether they are students and staff, or whether they're local residents and members of the community as well. And we work very closely with a number of local groups to support refugees as well. So the application, as I say, is in, and what will happen is in June, the panel that's been set up to evaluate our application will come and visit the university, will come and meet Karen and other senior leaders, members of the steering group, and our Sanctuary Scholars, and they will then assess our application. So we really hope for a good outcome. The early indications are that the application is a really strong one, so we'll wait to see, but that's kind of where we are with our application.
Perfect.
So.
Thank you so much, Philip. I'll move on. I'll pick out a few of the important questions for the pre-submitted questions. We won't have time to go through all of them, but whichever ones I don't answer, we'll get answers for those and post them on our website as well. Something that's really important is there's a risk for international students being affected by the issues going on globally, which can directly affect their mental health, resulting in underperformance and lack of engagement. What is the University of Kent doing to reflect that they have taken this as a risk factor and have developed the right systems of support?
So I think this comes back to what we've been talking about earlier, Zaid, which is that there are a number of university services that are available to students that the university runs and organises, and then there's also support and advice that Kent Union provides as well. So I think for me this is about making sure that we're appropriately signposting people to those support services, so student support and wellbeing, academic advisors, support for mental health and wellbeing that's actually beyond those immediate teams, referrals into wider health and care services if needed. I often think it's really difficult being a a student at university, because actually they're so large and complex as organisations, it's not always straightforward to know where to go. So we can sit here and think, well, we're providing loads of things, but actually, you know, when you sit down and talk with yourselves, with students, hear feedback, it's actually often quite difficult to find information, to work out where to go, to feel able to ask. And then, as some students have recently said to me, it's not the kind of support that they're looking for. So there's all of it's quite complex. So I think first of all there's us being clear about and signposting what there is, supporting people and feeling so they feel able to ask for whether it's help, support and advice, but then also opening up spaces so people can say, this isn't what I'm looking for, this is the kind, I want something different, this is what I'm looking for. Now, we may be able to support that, we might not be able to, but I'd rather have the dialogue where we say, this is what we can do, and then this is what we can't do, than not hear it at all. So I think the other thing is recognising that we are a hugely diverse community. So some 17,000 students, some 3,500, 4,000 staff in terms of actual people rather than, I hate the full-time equivalent, but so real people, and all with different views, different needs, different cultures, backgrounds, experiences. And I think that can be a challenge when we're thinking we provide services that can sometimes feel quite generic. And this is where I think it's important. First of all, there are some things we can do to adjust and to shape those. There are then things we can do to signpost people to different kind of support. Yeah. But there's also, I think, the important thing about actually, and I think Philip touched on it, there's some of the student activity, student activism, and staff as well. Actually, people often, we can help and support people coming together to do the kind of support work amongst and with themselves. And I think that is also a really powerful approach and powerful tool. But we also know as a university we need to provide the place and the space in which to do that. And that's what, for me, university is about. And those of us involved in universities, it is about creating those spaces for people to feel able to say what they want to say, like you said, respectfully, but that doesn't mean to say it isn't with passion and it isn't powerfully. Be listened to, and then also be up for hearing alternative perspectives as well. So I think that combined with, yes, there are services and support that we provide, and we need to be better at signposting them. But I also think there are really creative ways that we can work collectively together and with Kent Union in order to maybe provide some things quite differently.
Yeah, and I think you touched on the student voice bit, the feedback bit. It's really important to highlight some of the work that goes on at the university. So our International Students Advisory Board, which was created last year in collaboration with Kent Union, and that has some amazing international students on there that provide direct feedback into their experience, but also work to improve the experience of international students across the university. And we know our student body is diversifying, it's changing, as you said. So these forms of feedback are really important for us to, understand what they need, but then for us to then go back and close that feedback loop and show them what's possible, what's not, and how can we continue that dialogue and continue that work. So really important points. Thank you. Is there anything you wanted to add, Philip?
Nothing, thank you.
No worries. So we'll move on to the next question, and that is around the Kent 2030 strategy. So how are you putting students at the center of the Kent 2030 strategy? And also with a question around the kind of the financial sustainability of the university. How is that ensuring the financial sustainability of the university? And if you can give a background of the sector.
Yeah. Where to start? Yeah. How long have we got? So on Kent 2030, I think I touched on it in one of my earlier responses about how the university is really thinking quite boldly about its future in terms of who we are, what we are, how we're offering things, and how we want to really put, as I said, students at the heart of what we do. By which I mean making sure that we're responding to the feedback and experiences of our students, and that when we're thinking about the way that we're doing things, whether it's the way we're putting a course together or the way that we're timetabling something, that we think about students first. It's not the only thing we think about, but it is the thing that we always think about, and we try and do that first. So that's the sort of, I suppose, the difference that we're trying to get into our thinking and ways of pulling a strategic plan together that sets out the future of the university. Now, and yes, some of that is driven by the need to make sure that we are a sustainable university and financially sustainable into the future. And I think, you know, as I touched on earlier, the world is changing, and the way that people want to engage with education from school or college, or come back and into education if they've had a period in work for a while, is genuinely different now to 20, 30 years ago. Yeah. There are more people going to university, which is a fantastic thing, and I think that is a significant achievement. But as we know, in the UK, one of the challenges we have is how do we pay for all of that? I don't profess to have any easy answers, but what I do know is that as a university, we are constantly having to look at how do we manage financially. It is something that the whole university sector is having to look at. And I don't think that the answer is as simple. It's not about raising fees. It's not about just let's take more international students. There's got to be a much more joined up approach to let's talk about the UK. What does the UK want from higher education? Who does it want to support to go? And how are we going to make sure that all of that is resourced? Mm-hmm. So some of the things that I've been involved with have been very much about what's going on nationally, lobbying government for. It's not just about saying give us more money, because of course there are other areas of society that want more money. The NHS, early years education, care for older people, care for people who are displaced or are refugees or need different kind of help and support. There's all of those calls on our government. And so I think what we've been trying to do is to say, actually, what do we want to work with government to get a kind of better strategy and policy around all of this. And as part of that work, in terms of saying what do we want for the future of higher education in the UK and how do we want to resource it, we then also have to say, and what does that mean for the University of Kent? So yes, there are things that we are looking at around what are students looking for from university? What do they want to study? How do they want to study it? How can we set that up in a way that meets those needs, but also with the resources that we've got as well? So I think it's an exciting time to think about how we might, as I say, do things differently. How can we use technology differently? How can we work with others to do things differently? And that really is what Kent 2030 is all about. So I suppose it's saying, yes, the university was established in 1965 and it's done all these fantastic things. Yes, it's got a great future, but we're going to have to think differently about how we deliver that education and research, and what we do with our local communities, and how we resource all of that.
Thank you for that honest and open answer. I think it's really important for students to hear where the university and higher education sector is and what it means in the future. From what do you see Kent as, and that's really important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't. You know, I often feel these. I know they're question time, but sometimes you want a bit more of a dialogue. But maybe this is something for another time. But I do think, you know, and maybe we get them through yourselves, Ed, but something that is about, you know, first of all, we're really interested in what motivates people to actually invest in university education. Because it is a significant investment, isn't it, in terms of resource and time, and then what is it that they're hoping for once they graduate? And then the other piece we're kind of keen to do is make sure that we follow our graduates through and has what they've experienced at university influenced, helped, enabled them to actually achieve their career goals as well.
Alumni engagement
which
comes
is
in.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think we'll have some moment for dialogue from 2 onwards, so 2 to 2:30.
Okay, great.
We'll open it up to
Yeah.
audience questions as well. I did want to quickly touch on a key issue as well as sustainability and kind of the initiatives the university is taking to tackle sustainability as an overall issue, but also the cost of living crisis and kind of the big issues that are facing students and just people in general. How is the university tackling those? I'll pass over to you, Philip.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, no, really, really important part of what we do. I think the right to food is at the heart of this, and that's working with Kent Union, with the Food Foundation, with our catering team to really support our students. The cost of food in our catering outlets this year has gone down. It's gone down by over 20%, something like 28% in some catering outlets, which is a brilliant thing that the catering team has been able to do. We're also doing a health audit on all of the food that's comes out of our catering outlets. Working with Kent Union on the Gleaning Project, which is also bringing fresh food onto campus and redistributing it as well to people who need it and want it most. But it's, so I think the right to food is at the heart of our work around sustainability, but there's also a lot of work going on with, for example, the Oasis Garden. Some great work there, a lot of student volunteers who are really gaining from that kind of work. And we've got plans for a river of vegetation as well, which is going to mark our 2025 60th anniversary, which will be linking the Oasis Garden with our southern orchards, with a river of vegetation, which will, different ways in which we can grow fruit, nuts, all sorts of flowers and so on, as a teaching tool, as an educational tool, as much as something that is really attractive to look at and as a way of engaging with the public. It'll be a great thing to follow and to learn about how vegetation can support what we do here as a university. We've got a great campus, which is a fantastic resource, and it's so good, important for our well-being that we have this great resource, but how can we enhance it? And the right to food is one way of doing that, but there'll be more to come in due course.
And I think, if I may, I know it's something that is close to many people's hearts, is about how do we look after our environment. And we have a lot of green space. We have to look after it. We have to also think about how we look after the buildings and spaces that we use every day, but also try and reduce our carbon footprint as well. So we've got a range of targets around that, that we know we need to do things differently in order to be able to meet. So the way that we use our buildings, the way that we heat our buildings, we're working in partnership with business and industry to look at how we can sometimes retrofit some of those buildings, and the classic things that you can see on buildings, the PV solar arrays is one thing, but there are lots of other ways that we need to be working to make sure that we're reducing that carbon footprint. And I know it is something that is really, when we talk about sustainability, it spans so many things, doesn't it? Yeah. And there's how do we all live sustainably. There's what that means in terms of when resources are really challenged, and I know that cost of living has significantly impacted our students. I know that many students have jobs, are juggling all of that with study. It's challenging around rents, it's challenging around food, and I know that the work we've been doing to try and reduce the cost of food, to do the £3 meal deals, to work with Kent Union on Campus Pantry, they're all things that, yes, it's important that we do, but it's pretty rotten that we have to do it in the first place. Yeah. But I'm glad we're able to do some of those things. But for me, it's also really important that, again, we lobby around some of these things. So we do work. I work with Universities UK, so universities across the country, to lobby government around the student maintenance grant. It hasn't kept pace with inflation. The full grant is only available to students who have particular household incomes, and actually the total amount one can borrow barely covers the cost of rent in some cities. So actually, for me, these are things that are about addressing access to education, because whilst, yes, there are loans for fees and grants there, actually they're not enough. And so, again, some of the things we're also looking at doing as part of Kent 2030 is looking at how we can think about the curriculum, the way that we deliver it, so that it does enable students to be able to juggle what they have to do in order to be able to continue to study. But as I say, I think there are also things that we are and can and should be doing that are about trying to make sure some of those structural things are reduced as far as possible, so that people can engage productively with their time at university.
100%.
Sorry, that was a bit of a segue away from sustainability.
If I could just add, I mean, there are lots of opportunities to get involved with students, and I mentioned gleaning and the Oasis Garden, but we've also got an event, just a quick plug for an event, a student engagement event in 2 weeks' time, where we're going to be talking about the right to food and looking at opportunities to get involved if you want to be a sustainability champion or right to food champion. We'll be meeting in Templeman at 4 o'clock, but then we're coming here for a free meal at 5 o'clock on the 28th of November. So do look out for that opportunity to get involved.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we'll be posting that on our social media as well, and add it to our emails so we can send that information out to students. So please keep an eye out. We still have loads of pre-submitted questions, and what I'll do is I'll take these back, get the answers for these, and then we'll put them up on the website as well and share the link out via our email. And I do want to open it up to a kind of an open discussion with the audience and get some questions in. So we'll open it up to audience questions, and we have Linda and Linda, the lovely Lindas with their roaming mics. So if we can have hands up and keep questions concise. We have a question up here, and then here, and there. So we have 3 questions.
My question.
Hi there. So, thank you so much for your time today. My question surrounds the community and engagement theme. I was an undergraduate before the first sort of big restructuring 2019-20 period, and I belonged to School of Arts. Whenever I used to go into the German building, it was always full of life. There were people around, there were events, there were coffee mornings. There was lots going on. It was a meeting point in the foyer. There was always so much life. As a PGR student now, unfortunately, whenever I go through the building, which is quite often because we do have a lovely postgrad area upstairs, but whenever I go through the building nowadays, it's incredibly quiet. Nothing happens. It's kind of lost its soul a little bit. Jarman's not alone. In talking to friends, other buildings are the same. I know some schools are doing really well. Men's definitely gets a big thumbs up in how they manage events and stuff like that. But my question is there a way that we can, even though still organising everything at a central level, is there a way that we can still put support and encourage events at a local level? Because I think community starts at the bottom and it builds up. You need to have the local communities building before you can feel part of a bigger community at Kent. So if we can get events and things and support for those events, even though there might not be much money, I appreciate that. But if that can be done or looked into, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I think there's a huge amount in what you're saying about how do we ensure that we're still creating that sense of community belonging, that there are groups of individuals here that are coming together as people who are interested in the same subject areas or just want to, so it could be an academic community activity, or it could be just simply for social and support and, and having some lightheartedness. So I think I'd say a few things. First of all, I think, yes, we have been reorganising, we have been changing. We've also had COVID, which has meant that actually people have been using places and spaces very differently. And I don't know about yourselves, but I sometimes feel we're still dealing with, forgive me, a kind of long COVID. It's cast an incredibly long shadow in terms of how we're doing things, how we're engaging. But I think the most important thing is actually that what you said about actually the thing about community and activities comes from actually right where it is, the ground up. So I think, and things don't necessarily cost loads of money. So I think for me this is about the work that we've been doing around how do we support academic community, and again we've been doing some work with Kent Union around that. How do we support our staff and colleagues and people in departments and schools to think about school level activities? And I think it's going to be an ongoing piece of work. So it's not that we're saying nobody can do these things anymore. We recognise there are resources that are challenging, and we also recognise that behaviours have changed. But I think one of the things we're really wanting to do is look at how do we build things in almost to the way that we're organising ourselves, that the way that we're delivering courses, education or activities jointly that actually mean that we are doing those things in the places and spaces where people feel that they belong. So I suppose if you've got any ideas or thoughts around that, then please do let us know. But sorry, Zaid, go on.
I think you probably also recognise how this year people are a lot more engaged as well, so you can see kind of us reeling
It's
into
felt
it.
different. I don't know, for those people who've been here beyond just this year's felt quite different to the last few years. It's more people around, people really quite engaged, asking, can we do X, Y, and Z, and so I think it's felt quite different, but there's still more work to do.
It's certainly different this year, and you do spot more people around, definitely. And I think COVID has taken a long time. But I think it's how can we get people back into the local hotspots
Yeah.
as well, which is big.
Yeah.
Is it, even if we're like centrally, even if we're like centrally controlled, it's really important to us, like that locally delivered aspect, and it's how we, completely agree.
So I talk about these things as being, yes, we might have a kind of a single team, a central team, but actually it's got to be locally delivered.
Great.
Complete.
Thank you so much. And we have a question here. If you could say your name as well, that would be great.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having this event here, the Q&A. I feel like it's very essential for students to be able to speak up and ask questions. My name is Her. I'm a fourth year student, film student at the placement, and hopefully this will be my last year. I'm also the vice president of the Islamic Society, and I am here to basically represent all the Muslims and Arabs here on campus. Unfortunately, most of them could not come because of their classes and exams. However, I'm just here to say only one thing and one thing only. To be frank, I know that the university and Kent Union, I know that this might be a very difficult situation for everyone, for the administration teams, to the students, and it's not the best time at all, and we can all agree on this. But one thing that I feel that the students are quite disappointed with is that the support that we need from our staff, our lecturers, our university is not that great, unfortunately. When the war happened in Ukraine, the uni did an amazing, amazing work. I've been here for the past 4 years. I have seen how this university have been there for each and every student, even myself. And you guys have done an amazing job. But when it comes to this point, why don't we get the same thing in return? That's the thing. Why aren't there emails going out to lecturers and staff telling them there are students there going through something, please give them extensions. If there's something, come talk to us. If there's something, please give them a break. If there's, this is a very crucial moment, and everyone needs to be aware of this. And I'm not talking this based on me, I'm talking this about facts and about students coming to me as the VP, telling me, Hood, I have an issue with this and this and this.
Yeah.
So when a student comes to me and tells me I've reached out to the student support well-being with all due respect and the lecturers and tell them my family member have been murdered in this and my family are there stuck and they cannot come. And when I reach out and tell them I cannot go to my exam, and then I get a response saying, oh, you can go speak to one of the advisor, or, oh, I'm sorry about this conflict. I'm sorry. The words that are used, this is not correct.
Yeah.
As a human being, you get me?
Yeah.
And I am here, I'm not here to debate or argue or fight or anything, because I have hope in this university, because you guys stand for equality, diversity, and respect to everyone. And I feel like this is the chance to hear us out, to be there for us, and to actually do this mission and actually stand with this slogan, because we need it. So this is your chance, please. I'm asking you kindly to support us in any way possible to change this and be one of the universities who stand with the right side of history. Just the bare minimum is to be with the humanity right now.
Yeah.
So I'm asking this politely, please try to make a change. We still have hope. Please do not fail us. Do not fail the Palestinians. Do not fail the students that trust you and they have left everyone in their hometowns and everything to come study here. Let us say something good about this uni, that you were on the right side. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much for the way that you've spoken. I completely respect what you're asking for, which is a humane way of being listened to, supported, and I can only say that is absolutely what we want to and must do for all our students, our Palestinian students as well. It's not about, as you said, it's not about, as wanting to ignore. I think what we've got to do is listen to you. I'm very comfortable if you are, for us to have a follow-up conversation, because in your role you will be hearing lots of experiences and realities that I won't, and I acknowledge that, and I'm humbled by that. So I'd like to hear direct from you, and then I will do what I can with working with my team and with my colleagues to address the concerns that you've raised and to make sure that you get the support that you need. Working with Philip, we've made some further communications with our staff around all of this, and are really clear that we need to be making sure that we're creating the spaces for people to voice what's happening to them, voice I mean it's just one can barely speak about the horror, and we've got to be able to stand together, all of us, to support each other and to make sure that we're doing something about it. So let me follow up and we'll meet, and we'll talk through what we can do better by listening, and then do better by responding.
Thank you so much for your honesty and being so open as well. We really do appreciate it, and I take everything back. I know we've met before as well, and we'll continue to be there supporting you and making sure we're challenging you.
So
guys.
can you put us in touch?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Email you guys together in one chain.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you so much again. I'll go up to a question up there as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Hi there. My name's Lulu. I am the Women's Network Chair here at Kent. I just had a couple of questions, although I'll stick to one.
Thank you.
Regarding safety and inclusion on campus. Now, essentially, as Women's Network Chair, I recently went to the Women and Non-Binary Hours at the Kent Sport Facility Gym to get feedback from students and staff, where it was alluded to me by staff that there were known trans exclusionary sentiments among some staff members. When pressed further, they suggested the only diversity training that they got came in the form of Moodle quizzes. As you mentioned EDI training earlier, I wanted to ask for more specifics to see what Kent is doing to tackle ignorance and make sure their facilities are safe spaces to marginalised groups. And also, particularly, what does EDI training here at Kent look like and include?
So you're raising really important points, and I think it's fair to say, as acknowledged when we were talking about the Black Student Voices work, is that we've got more to do around equality, diversity, inclusion, and addressing the concerns of different groups, but also much more widely right across our campuses. So we do have EDI training, but you're absolutely right. A lot of that is online. A lot of it is at a level where we recognise we're just beginning. I'd say there are different experiences across campus in terms of our staff groups. So some colleagues have had, depending on their roles, have had a lot of training, but I'd say many haven't. So I'd say there's two things that we're looking at around all of this. We've got a very specific focus around Athena Swan, which is gender and progression within universities, but also our race equality charter as well. So there's two specific pieces of work that we're doing with our staff and our student community. But there's also wider work that we are just putting in place with our HR teams around looking at what are different ways of being able to support colleagues to be able to engage in training that isn't just a tick box and isn't just a Moodle page. So I'm conscious that we've got, as I say, a long way to go. So we've got some things in place, but it's not really, I think, the dynamic, the kind of space where we want people to feel actually that they're learning and developing rather than they've just gone through a tick box exercise. So what I'll also say is that we'll come back on this in terms of actually setting out what we are doing, and we can then follow up if you've got other areas you think we should be considering, and I can make sure that gets fed back to our EDI team as well.
And one thing, oh sorry.
I was just going to say thank you.
Oh no, that's fine.
One thing to add to that as well is that we will be running from Kent Union a specific research project on LGBTQIA+ students with a specific focus on trans students as well. So understanding their experiences and what they go through at university, and especially here at Kent, where they find those pockets are, and so we can identify those and tackle those together. So those will come with a list of recommendations that we can hopefully get a better understanding of where our focus should be in supporting those students and what training is really needed. And some of the things that came out of our roundtable discussions at the BSV Summit were also on the basis of how do we best deliver training to staff, how do we best have those conversations, and also highlight the good work that goes on in different areas of the university, because it's good to know. A lot of the times we work in silos because the university is so massive. We need to know what's going on in terms of the good work and spread that out and push it out to all areas, from our professional services to our academics, and how can we best support that. So we're working with the university on that as well. That helps.
Thanks for your question.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? We have one there and one there. You guys can fight amongst yourselves, whoever's first.
Hi, my name is Joaquin. I'm a student trustee at Kent Union and also a International Student Advisory Board member. The question that I have for you today, one of many, is that the university states that it wants to put students at the forefront of their 2030 vision. Considering that Kent Union is the direct correspondent to our student body, how will you work with them to achieve this goal and rebuild trust with the institution? Thank you.
Thank you. So yes, you've raised it in your question, and I've said it a few times in terms of what we're looking to do as a university and work with our student community to really put students at the heart of what we do. And I recognise it's easy to say, but it's incredibly hard to do, and it's hard to do authentically. So that is absolutely, you're right to challenge us. In terms of how we're going about doing that, we recognise that, yes, we've got some ways of engaging with and getting feedback from students that are part and parcel of what we've been doing for the last few years. So I think I mentioned a few. There are various surveys and focus groups that we do regularly. But we recognise that as part of this, we've got to do that differently. So one of the things we are doing is working with Kent Union, as you've said, as the great way of being able to, through an organised group, be able to access a very, very wide range of views and opinions and experiences from across the university. So that engagement piece of work is absolutely at the heart of the planning that we're putting in place around Kent 2030. the president of the student union is on the programme planning board as well. And that is, I think, really an important signal of the importance that we're placing on putting students at the heart. And as I've also said, President of the Student Union is on the university governing body, where ultimately decisions around all of this will be made, and we'll make sure that students' views and voice is heard absolutely as part of that. But again, if there are other ways, when Kent Union are feeding back and saying, you know, this is the way we're trying to get student views, whether it's surveys, focus groups, just drop-ins, whatever, if there are other ways you think we should be doing it, and you've got ideas, then please either let us know direct or come via Zaid. Because, you know, we recognise there are very different, it's not just, you know, fill in a survey. There are so many more creative ways that we can get feedback, and we'd like to make sure that we tap into all of that as well.
Okay, thank you.
If anyone has any ideas on how we can best consult students as well, please do reach out to me. I have my business cards here, so I will give them out at the end. But it's really important for us to kind of have those conversations and see what are new innovative ways we collect feedback. And if I really urge every student to get involved with the Kent 2030 consultations, so the different groups that we're running. We even tried to do, on the academic year, the shape of the academic year, a debating union event that went really, really well. So we were able to like embed that into the debating union format and actually debate the pros and cons of the project, and that was really good. So fun, creative ways. I thought, please do come through with the ideas. We're always open to listening. So yeah.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Hi, y'all. My name is Ryan Rothermel. I'm a third-year law student here at Kent, and I'm also the head of the International Students Network. So thank you all for coming out and whatnot. So my question revolves around exam practices and resets, and I'll start with a little bit of context here. Reset dates are lacking a sufficient notice. This past May, I was forced to miss an exam due to illness. For a large portion of the summer, I was left wondering when my resets would be, and I was told the exact dates less than 12 days before in August. To someone in the north of England, or Western Europe for that matter, this isn't a problem, costing less than 100 quid usually. But as an international student, the flight alone cost me nearly $2.5 grand. And this, I think, represents a problem. So my question to you is, what is the university doing to tackle this failure in communication and organization? Furthermore, why do these exams have to be done in person when many other universities, including other Russell groups, do them online?
Yeah, so completely take your feedback. And I would say that is absolutely what we're trying to do in terms of address that kind of feedback in the way that we are going to be delivering our education courses and examinations and assessments in the future. We haven't got that right yet. So I think there are some things for right now in terms of making sure we're communicating what's happening when and are really clear about it. But then we should be able to engage in ways of mitigating particular circumstances. So I'm sorry that you've faced that. But there is something about making sure that we're assessing much closer to when modules, etc., are being taken. So different assessment points in the year rather than waiting all till the very end. And also that should also mitigate some of the issues around waiting for resits as well. So there are things that we're already, that kind of feedback has meant that, you know, we just know we've got to change those things. Your point about online exams, absolutely. I think that also for me feeds into when I was at Access and Participation Working Group, some of the students there were raising, you know, why do I have to, if, you know, I might not be able to get into a session because of a particular health condition, or I need a carer with me and there's a problem with that. Why can't I do it online? We've done it online before. Yeah, why can't we do it online? So absolutely. So the things that you're raising, we need to address. So flexibility, making, so that is about whether it's online delivery of content or online exams and assessments, because we've done it before and we can do it again, and it's likely we'll end up with a mix, but we need a much more flexible mix. And then the point you make as well about when resets are and dates, and we want to make sure, again, as part of all this work, people have their timetables in advance, they know what they're studying when and where, they know what happens if, for example, they do have to reset something, so we can then put arrangements in place so we try and avoid the situation that you've just described.
I see. Thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other audience questions? We have one here. And then if you have time, we can go back to you, Lily.
Hi, my name's Lewis and I'm a fourth year computer science student. I've returned from my work placement this year and I wanted to ask you a question around how you've managed to balance cost cutting with ensuring the quality of service. So an example that I can provide for you is the experience that the computing placement students went through last year, which the placement service that we were sold as a service was that you received one in-person visit at your employment provider. You received an online visit as a follow-up to check on you. We would have a marked essay and a poster presentation fair that was assessed as part of the placement. Halfway through the year, after signing up and paying for the placement year and whatnot, we were told that due to university cost cutting, we wouldn't receive our person visit in person, we would receive it online. And then 3/4 through the way of the year, the placement staff were made redundant and our essay wasn't marked until sort of a couple of weeks ago. Our placement poster fair has been cancelled. We can't present the poster that we were going to present and had spent time preparing, and that's going to be disregarded. And I was just wondering really how cutting costs has been made in consideration to students and the experience that they're going through, and whether you have anything to say to the students that experience that, because a few of them are very unhappy about the service that they'd paid for that they didn't receive there.
Yeah. Thank you for that feedback. That wasn't something I was aware of. Can you just remind me which computer science?
Yes, yeah.
Have you... right,
Computer
okay.
science, yeah.
I'm going to take that away and raise it with the director of the Division for Computing, Engineering and Mathematics, where computer science is. Because reference to cost cutting shouldn't actually mean any of the things that you've described happening, because we are really clear that the commitment to the direct delivery of teaching and support and the things that you've described are absolutely part of what we need to be focusing on. So I need to take that away and understand what happened and why. And I'm sorry, I apologise that you had that experience.
If I may, I did question the placement staff as to why we wouldn't receive our visit.
Yep.
And the direct quote that I was told was university cost cuts as the reason.
Yeah. So yes, the university has had to look at its cost base and make some adjustments there. But that has very much, yes, and it has involved changing some of the teams. But it's actually been about bringing teams together so that there's a central team with local delivery, rather than what we were finding was teams that actually were, depending where you were in the university, you were resourced differently. So we've been trying to, yes, we have had to make some cost savings, but we've been trying to do that in a way that is about preserving the delivery of service by doing it differently. So I need to take that away, because just saying it's cost cutting, which means we can't come and visit you, is not something that we would have had as part of the plan. I understand if colleagues have had to make a decision around if they have been moved elsewhere, or there's been a vacancy created, or something has meant that particular service couldn't be delivered. So I will take that away and I will raise it, because yes, we do have to look at addressing cost base and resources, but we need to be doing that in a way that is about trying to deliver it differently, not worse. So I think anything that we're doing where we are changing things, we need to be clearly communicating to students. You need to be clear about what support you have been promised, and then what is delivered should be what's promised. So we need to be clear up front. So I'm sorry that you experienced that, because I think the changes we are trying to make are about two things. Yes, it is about making sure we're doing things absolutely that's responding to what our students are saying they want, need and expect. We then have to be clear about what that means in terms of meeting expectations and what is part of all of that. But there's lots that we can do that actually mean that the way we organise ourselves, the way we deliver things, not overcomplicating time, not offering loads of, there's lots of things that we can do to actually reduce the costs of some things to make sure we're continuing to deliver the services that we've promised. So yes, there is a lot of work to do around that, but I'm sorry that you had the experience that you had and it was just referred to as cost cutting.
We'll take that back.
Yeah, we'll take that back.
The email for you.
Yeah.
Thank you for looking into that.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we are out of time. It is 2:30, and I know you both have to leave. So thank you so much, firstly, for joining us and being so honest and open. These questions that we have remaining and any questions that anyone may have, I'll collect them in the next 15, 20 minutes once Philip and Karen leave, and I can take that back and get the answers for you, and we'll post that on our website around December time, and we'll post it all up so everyone can see it. So thank you again.
No, thank you, and thanks for coming.
Yeah, appreciate it. Can we give a huge round of applause, everyone?
No, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
No, thanks.